Good morning, good afternoon, good day, and good evening. Now, I don't know what time of day it is for you, but for me, it's the good time of day. We are back at it again today. I am feeling great. I hope that you are too. And one of the things I want to make sure I do today when we get started today, or before we actually really get started today, I just really want to tell everybody thank you. Right. And I know sometimes let me put it this way. Many times I get on here and there's a few people that I'm talking to on a regular basis. And as I get to talking to everybody, one of the things that it feels like is that I'm just talking into the air sometimes. I'm talking to a very few select people, and I don't think that a lot of people are hearing this, and it really doesn't matter. This is kind of what I do. I like to consider this me trying to give back, trying to see if I can make some kind of difference for others and not just for myself. And a lot of times it doesn't feel like that's the case, right? It feels like I'm sitting here, I'm talking, I'm taking the time out to research these subjects, to talk to you guys about things that are pertinent, things that are instrumental, things that are influential within our lives, strategies, tactics that are being used against us as a community, as Black people today, and to highlight those things, to make sure I keep them on the forefront, to make sure that they're relevant, right? And it's sometimes disheartening if I'm being honest about it. It really is. It gets to the point sometimes where I'm sitting here and it feels like I'm just talking into the air. However, today I was contacted earlier, and when I was contacted earlier by someone who has a didn't know him from Adam and Eve, and they expressed appreciation for the information I'm putting out, and it really, 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 really made a difference for me today. A lot of times, I'll be honest with you, I get in here and I do this. I put the money into the studio and made sure that I had some place where I could talk to you guys, something that the production value is decent, that it might not be the highest production value. I sit up here, I make sure I get myself ready. I come in here and I make sure that the same way that I would present for a client, if I'm doing a mediation, I come in here and I make sure that I present favorably for my people. So if I can do it for all these other folks that I might be working with, why can't I do it for my brothers and my sisters? And sometimes I'll be honest with you, it just feels a little disheartening. It feels like I'm not really talking to anybody, that nobody's really listening. And that is, I'm wasting my time and giving back. But today, the person that reached out, I don't want to dox anybody or anything along those lines. I didn't ask. I should have asked. I really should have asked. Can I mention them today? But I guarantee you, the next time something like that happens, I will ask, the same way I do model release forms for the guests that are coming in. I'll be asking to make sure that I can use their information uh, going forward. Let me see. What did I do here? Okay, that's what I did there. So when that happens, I can't tell you how good it makes me feel. I really can't. I really, really, really appreciate you guys, especially when you guys reach back out. I sit here, I'm on a microphone, talking into a camera and looking at a screen and trying to see whether or not we have any kind of engagement, or making sure I don't miss the engagement that we have. Speaking of which, let me do this right now. And I like to do this at the beginning at this point. Uh, is give you guys the opportunity, if you want to. I know a lot of you guys feel more comfortable talking through the comments, and that's fine too. I say that interaction helps me out a lot. You have no idea, it helps me out a lot. I have, I say, being able to talk to people and see you guys in the comments, talking back to me, and interacting with me. There's two parts to that happens. One of those aspects is as I'm talking, and seeing the interaction, if what I'm talking about is landing, or do I maybe need to switch up on something, right? Are there other things I need to cover as we're discussing these things, besides just sitting down and just spewing out whatever it is I'm talking about at the moment? That being said, uh, as I'm doing that, as I'm as it's going on, that helps so much to be able to actually talk with you guys. So there's a lot of stuff that I have as far as information I've already have prepped. My nerd in me gets to coming out, right? I get to sit there, I get to prep, I get to do research, I get to do all the things that I enjoy doing, the stuff that most people don't want to do. It's something that I enjoy doing. And if I recognize that others prefer not to do it and I like to do it, then it's a value add for me, right? I can add value to your lives by doing the research that you might not want to do. And I can specify where the research is at. I can specify where the documents are at, where the stuff that you need to be looking for when you hear somebody say something that is completely out of bounds, right? And now you don't have to just reply or respond to them in a sense or with just emotion. Now you got data to back it up. Now you know where you can go to, you can go find it. You don't need to know where it's at, memorize it. Excuse me, let me correct that. You need to know where to go find it, but you don't need to memorize all the statistics, all the numbers and all that stuff, but you need to know where to go find it, right? Somebody tells you something, they say, hey, this is how this works, so that's how that works. The ability to know where to find the information to go back and bring it up and say, no, that's not how that works, or that's not what this is. Or the ability that when somebody says something that's completely out of pocket, like we were talking about yesterday with Ted Cruz and the saying that we need to go back to the conventions of the election from 1876, which led to the compromise of 1877, which was pulling out the troops from the South that were engaged in helping Black people to get a leg up during Reconstruction that we needed to be able to help us to be made whole, to be able to pull back on programs that were designed for Black people. And to be able to hear that and to understand, oh, they said the quiet part out loud, right? So whenever I can do that kind of research, whenever I can make sure that I keep those things in the forefront, and forgive me, I got dead skin, bothers me on my lips. Can't stand it. I say keep them from being chapped, but at the same time, dead skin on my lips bothers me. I can feel it even now. In any event, but to be able to point out and highlight those various aspects as we're, and I just knocked the microphone. Let me raise this up a little bit for you. So but to be able to point it out, to be able to highlight these things, to be able to state them explicitly or empirically in a level that, or in a way that everybody can get, everybody knows where to find it at, that you can now reference it yourself, that you don't have to worry about, oh, well, they said this, and then it's like, I don't know where to go find that information, or they're going to say that, and I don't know, I don't have anything that I can use to rebut. I don't have anything that I can use to defend myself and my people. And my job at this point is to help us to defend ourselves and to defend one another. And to the end that I can do that, and that you guys actually appreciate it, it goes a long, long way, right? I appreciate you guys for supporting me in these ways. I appreciate you guys for looking out for me, and for the person that called me earlier today. I really appreciate that. You have no idea of how much that means. A lot of days, like I said, I don't quit, because one of the things I learned from my parents, you don't quit. You do not quit. And so I don't quit. But at the same time, a lot of days I do feel like quitting. And for me, I think to myself, when I think about quitting, it's going to sound really silly, is that when it gets beyond me and I feel like letting go, I think back to my parents, specifically like with my dad and my grandparents or whatnot, that if I quit, their name is attached to it. And now they're also attached to being a quitter. And to say that my grandparents, my parents, that they're quitters, something hard for me to let go, right? So it's a personal aspect of it, whereas the self-love portion, but at the same time, it's that family aspect where I look at my parents, my grandparents, my aunts, my uncles. Do they want to be known, or do we want to have that do I want to be the person that puts that out there, that we as a family are quitters, that we as a family give up when it gets hard, that we as a family don't do the things that we need to, or that we put our name on to say that we are going to do. And the thought of that, of having that family name, of having my family implicated in that way as being quitters, is something that keeps me going as well. But it also helps immensely when you guys express appreciation as well. That goes a very, very, very long way towards helping me to keep going, to helping me get the motivation, get my mojo cooking, where I need to get out there and make sure that I do the research necessary to make sure that we're all on the same page. Not only that we're all on the same page, but we have the same information and that it's not hidden from us. Because a lot of times, how do they hide the information from us? They hide it from us in plain sight, right? In plain sight. They'll put it right in front of your face and know that you won't go and get it. A lot of us don't like to go get it. I love to go get it, right? There are things that they put out there that I enjoy going to get. They'll put it right there in the library. They'll put it right there in front of you. They'll say that, oh, he won't look in a book. I sure will. He won't read that paper. I sure will. He won't read that statute. I sure will. He won't look at that opinion from the court. I sure will. I enjoy reading. I enjoy listening. I enjoy those aspects of it, even when I'm working manually, and I enjoy manual labor as well. But the ability to be able to get in there in my head when I'm doing something manual, to be able to keep my brain engaged. Some days you just want to disconnect and disengage. That's true too. But the ability to keep my brain engaged is something that I definitely enjoy doing. And it's something that I enjoy being able to assist our community in bringing that information out. So, and going over all that and thanking everybody and showing my appreciation to everybody today. And that's just been on a journey with me. I really appreciate it, especially those who stuck it through and who are still here. I really appreciate you guys sticking in here with me, because they call it labor of love or whatever, but you might not think it, but I love my people. I love Black people. I love being Black. I love being around Black people. I love our people. There are things that I feel that we definitely can work on, and there's things that we can definitely do in order to improve where we're at. And the goal of what I'm doing now is to reach that goal, right? The strategy here is to reach the goal, right? That's the strategy. The tactics I'm using to reach that goal of making sure that we as Black people are able to get ahead, are able to do better in life. And not just do better, because we're always taught to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, and we're always taught the half of the equation that is just the self-reliance, the self importance of ourselves to do what it is we can. And we're not taught about the other aspect of the other half of the equation, which is the opportunities and access that are denied to us, right? And so being able to recognize what those are, and to want to put it on not just a bell curve where you have those outliers of us that are successful. And then once you're successful, you pull the ladder up so that nobody else is able to be successful. The goal here is to make sure that we all succeed. The goal here is to make sure that we're all doing good. And the goal here is to recognize the tactics. The strategy is always the same in order to keep us down, but the tactics that they utilize in order to do so. And as we understand the tactics, at the very least, we understand what it is that we need to do in order to go forward. So towards that end, whether you got it this morning, you have your little Apple Watch on, or your smart watch that you got from Google or whatever, whoever it might be an Amazon product that helped you to wake up this morning, your cell phone or whatnot, kicks that information back, whoever that third party is, or you just named several of them, but whoever that third party is, to be able to now look at it and say, okay, we got that. You're getting ready. You got your music playing, getting you going in the morning. You got it playing on whatever, your Spotify, your iTunes, whatever, whoever the third party is that's going on. You got your cell phone, your calls that you're making that morning. You're making moves. You're getting things going. You getting ready. You've been either already in the gym and now back out of the gym. You're now on your way to sit there and go hit the grind on the work. You're now in your vehicle, and with your Apple Drive or your Google whoever the third party, the OnStar, whatever that you're utilizing, whoever that third party is, getting you to work on time, getting your music that you're listening to that's getting you there, or your podcast that you're listening to that's getting you there, getting to work, either zoning out with your podcast in your ears, your phone going, and you're moving after it, or whatever it is that you're doing that day to get through that work day, and then you get on home and you in that process, and hopefully right now you're on your computer or on your device right now and you are listening to me. One of the things that's interesting for me, though, in that whole series of events that I just walked through, right, it helps to underline the legal process or the lie that was not told to us by Edward Snowden. Right, so he exposed a lot of things for us. Right, when we look at Edward Snowden and what he did, a lot of times one of the things that happens is that we talk about, we think that they're doing this, we think that they're doing that, we think that these individuals are doing these things, and you're not able to actually pinpoint what it is that's happening from that perspective, right? You can't say for sure that your rights are being violated, that the Fourth Amendment, the protections against unwarranted search and seizure, is being violated, that mass surveillance is going on across the spectrum of all the different government agencies. We've never been able to say for sure, for certainty, that that's what's happening, but now we are. And it's thanks to people like Edward Snowden and WikiLeaks and things along those lines that helps us now to be able to point out that those things actually happen, right? We're now able to look at it and to say, these are the things that have happened, and we actually now have proof. It's not just speculation. It's not an assumption. It's not just sitting here talking about it going, yeah, this is what these people are doing to us. This is how they're doing it. And I think that they're doing this. And I think that now we have proof. Now we can sit there and we can point it out and we can say, these are the things that are actually happening in regards to ourselves and the Congress the government agencies. And even at this point, one of the things that's not talked about is big tech and big business, right? Why is that important? What is it about that aspect that's actually important? And let me do one thing here because I want to share something with you guys. Instead, you know me, I like to bring receipts. I don't like to just make statements of fact without showing what those facts are and where those facts come from. And one of the things, let me see if I can get this in here right now for you. Outstanding. That's going to be there. I'm going to come back here and make sure that that is good. Outstanding. We're where I want to be. So what is it about it that happens? So in that series of events that I outlined for you, maybe I say if you're legally aware of how I laid that out, you'll understand exactly where you're probably already where I'm heading. If you're not, stick along for the ride. We're going to get there. We're going to get there. I'm not going to sit there and try to take up all your time tonight, but I want to lay the foundation for you. I want to make sure that when we get there, that we're all there and we're all on the same page. So let's do this. As a people, we have all of these devices. And what Edward Snowden was able to show us was that all of these devices collect data on us, and that the government doesn't use warrants all the time. And I think it's important at this point, at this juncture, and what we're talking about, what we're getting into, I think it's really important that we distinguish two different types of searches, right? And it's not something that you'll find legally or normally that they'll outline for you. But there's two things that you need to keep in mind. There's both the voluntary searches that we submit to, and there's the involuntary ones, right? And people, it's like, what do you mean voluntary? And even people who are legal, they're like, what do you mean voluntary or involuntary? Well, let's put it this way. In the scenario that we outlined earlier, you get up, you have your Apple Watch on, you have a cell phone, you get in your vehicle has the tracker on it that helps you get from point A to point B, might even tell you where you left your vehicle at. That was something that's been going on since OnStar, right? Back in the OnStar days. Now Apple and Google and whoever else, whatever the car manufacturers, all of them also have that capability in order to do the same type of stuff for you, even to unlock your doors, tell you where your vehicle is at, all these type of things. Your cell phone, everybody understands that we talk about being chipped. You don't need to be chipped because you've been trained. Don't need to be chipped because you have been trained to carry your chip. You carry it with you everywhere you go. You carry the chip with you, and that is your cell phone, right? So your vehicle, your cell phone, you get to work, you go go to the gym, you probably have that you paid for, which is probably with a credit card or your debit card. And every time you slide that, also as a tracker, it says that, hey, I'm here at this particular time, at this particular moment. You go someplace else, you swipe your card. I'm here at this particular time, at this particular moment. You think about the fact that a lot of these vehicles nowadays, that when you're in them, they now have to come up with some laws or some guardrails to keep them from just turning your stuff off on you, right? To keep them from keeping your vehicle at the most inopportune time from stopping on you, right? All of these are things that we have that are both benefits and detriments of the technology that's afforded to us today, right? But what does that have to do with the lie that we're not told? How is it that we're legally tracking? Well, this goes back to the voluntary versus the involuntary forms of tracking, right? All of those things that I just named for you, you're sending your data back to a third party, right? Whether it's Apple, Amazon with a Echo device, or Alexa or whatever, Microsoft with their Cortana, or Apple with Siri, or whoever, Google, hey Google, whatever that the device is, all that information that you're sharing, whether it's OnStar, whoever it is, the payment processors for your credit cards or your charge cards or your debit cards, whoever that is, that's all information that you're sharing with a third party. Now, why did I give you all those sounds right there? Because that's a clue. I want you to pay attention right now, because that's something that's very important to keep in mind right now. When we talk about voluntary tracking, anything that you share with a third party comes up under the third party disclosure doctrine, or what they call the assumption of the risk. But the third party disclosure doctrine, anything that you share with a third party is no longer subject to the Fourth Amendment's unreasonable or warrantless search criteria. It is no longer a Fourth Amendment issue, right? At this point, all the stuff that you voluntarily shared with all these different third-party entities is voluntary. You have voluntarily shared your information with a third party. The government no longer needs or requires a warrant to pick up that information. Not in the least, right? Because you have shared it with a third party, it is covered up under the third party disclosure doctrine, right? So when you get to that point, everything that you put out there, everything that you share with these individuals, you go, well, I didn't share it with them. Apple says that everything's private. Yes, it's private, right? Because the definition is it's free from unauthorized access. The key there being the word that I highlighted the right syllables to say that it is unauthorized access. And if they come in there with only thing that they actually need at that point, if they're doing an investigation on you, or they're looking out for you, or they're trying to get your information, only thing they need at that point, the only thing that they need at that point is a subpoena. They don't need a judge to issue one. They don't need anything along those lines. They just need to have the DOJ. They'll sit there. They will issue a subpoena for your information. And a lot of times they'll issue a subpoena and a gag order, what is called an NDO, a non-disclosure order. And many of the companies now, they're pushing back, but they're not really, it's kind of a ceremonial pushing back. on the government coming in and asking for data. How do we know this? Let me share something with you real fast here. You just run a quick search on tech companies, subpoenas, gag order, or NDOs, right? And what will come back for you are things like this. Microsoft decries government use of gag orders to keep subpoenas secret in investigations, right? Which means they go to Microsoft, they say, hey, we need X, Y, and Z's data. And not only do we need their data, here's an NDO, a non-disclosure order, a gag order. You are not to tell them, not to inform them that we are taking their data. And this was, this is as late as June 30th, 2021, when this article was done. There's another article here that we have talking about from Berkeley Law, tech companies challenge subpoenas and gag orders, right, from 2019. These are things that the ACLU and the like are still actively combating, right? So you're looking at it here. They go in there. They don't need a warrant. They say, hey, it doesn't violate, right? They specifically cite such as practices that violate First and Fourth Amendment rights of their consumers, but you can't raise that. The companies can't raise it. They can say it's overly broad. They can come up with some other pretext or some other reason on why it is they don't that taking that information or providing that information goes against what it is that they want to do, but they cannot say it's a violation of the Fourth Amendment because it's no longer a violation of the Fourth Amendment. It is the third-party disclosure doctrine. This doctrine means it's not a violation of the Fourth Amendment to simply hand over somebody else's information, right? If you and I were engaged in something and I told the other person, they can't raise a Fourth Amendment search as a defense to say why it is they're not going to provide my information or provide something that I've given to them. So provide those, because that doesn't apply. It's not theirs. It's mine, but it's something that I have provided to them. Is no longer subject to Fourth Amendment. Now they just need a subpoena, which the investigating agency, whatever that three-letter agency is, that wants that information can now come in there and do that. So let's see. It says Facebook recently divulged that 60% of data requests it receives from world governments includes some kind of attached gag order. Similarly, Microsoft provided. So Facebook, Microsoft, Apple's also been a part of it. Google's been a part of it. Alphabet, their parent company, has been a part of it. All of these companies, Amazon, all of them have, if they ask for your information, they're going to give it to them. And it's important to note that when you look at these things, the gag orders, the subpoenas and the like that you're looking at, all of this stuff that's there, all of these points that they're giving are all things that you might think is protected and it's not. This is voluntary surveillance that you're submitting to. You are in here now saying, essentially, once you give these companies your data and you allow them access the way that they have it, you are essentially saying it is okay to give that to the government, right? That is legally what you're doing. They don't need to, it's not a violation of a warrantless search. And I'm going to keep on saying it because I want to hammer that point home. So a lot of times we think that, hey, they need a search warrant to get this information. They can't get my information without a search warrant. And the reality is, yeah, they can. And not only can they get it without a search warrant, it's not even protected. Well, you know what? Let me cover one other thing because it has as far as protection, because there's 2 points of this protection deal. So it's not protected from a warrantless search. The other aspect of that, the other part of that, is that many of the things that the government is doing right now, they're enacting policies. And let me go to one of them. I'm going to show you a policy that they have. And this is primarily dealing with CALIA stuff. This is primarily dealing with stingrays. This is switching over from voluntary to involuntary. So these are things that traditionally you would think of that requires a warrant, right? And it's important that as you're looking at these items that require a warrant or that should require a warrant, that there are also laws and policies that are in place right now for it. What are some of those? Let me show you. Let me show you one of them. Where am I at? Oh, there it is. Looking for this mouse. It keeps on jumping around. And it would help if I hit the right button at this point. Here we go. So this is an article that came out of The Intercept, and I'm going to recommend that any and everybody within the sound of my voice right now gets in here and they go and they find this article on The Intercept. As a matter of fact, what I'm going to do, I'm going to attach this article. I'm going to put it in the description down below. I'm going to recommend that you guys go in here and you guys look at this article, because this is a very timely article, something that when you look at it, when you read the contents of it, it helps you to understand exactly what's going on as far as how the cops can secretly track your phone, right? And this is not just your phone, but primarily this is going to be your phone. There's going to be other devices also. Anything that connects to the internet, this is something that when you're looking at it, this is what they have to track you. These are these Stingray devices. And these Stingray devices, they've come up with policies, right? Not laws, but policies within the various agencies that use it. These three-letter agencies, these government agencies that use it, on how they can utilize these Stingray devices, these dirty boxes, these other devices to be able to track cell phones. And this is a pretty technical article as well, but it's laid out in layman's terms that you can get in there and you can look at it, because what they're tracking and how they're able to pinpoint exactly who you are with your device. And I'm going to use a technical term right now. So bear with me for a moment as I use this technical terminology and talking about this. But what they're doing is that they're taking your phone number. And if you're familiar with computers in a little bit and you understand the difference between a MAC address and an IP address, they're taking what's essentially your phone's MAC address, your IMEI number on the phone. It's hardwired into the phone. It's not something that you can get rid of. It is something that all phones have, and it is specific to that particular handset. So you can swap out SIM cards and the like, but that IMEI number for that device is going to remain. And if they know the IMEI number, and even if they don't know the IMEI number, because one of the things that these Stingray devices do is it can see all of the devices in a certain area within a quarter mile. And they can and all these devices report back, and they're able to see for every device that connects to that Stingray device, all the IMEI numbers that are attached to it, right? So now you're looking at a device that says, okay, all of these devices are attached to it, and it can also give you a close proximity between where the devices are in relation to the Stingray. So where all the phones are in relation to the Stingray device. Why is that important? Well, it's important because as you're looking at all these different devices that are out there, and you're able to see, okay, well, these individuals are around one another. So if you're at a protest, like a BLM protest or an Occupy protest or any other type of protest that's out there, the protest with the truckers, the protest on Black Rock, anything that you have where you're protesting the government, they're able to see what devices are actually there. And they have them where they can do it mobily in a vehicle, because these are small devices that are relatively small. They look about something like this, but they also have some that they put in planes, which are, I'm trying what the terminology was for the ones in planes. I'll be honest with you, I had a brain fart right now on the name of that device. But those devices are now able to pull and see who all is in that area. They can jam service in that area. So there's a lot of capability, and in reading reading this article where it talks about all the different aspects of it, one of the things that comes out is that this is dealing with what is Kalia. That's also important, because I'll point out one of the things that's important with that one as well. But in dealing with it, one of the things they're talking about right now is the Justice Policy Guidelines, or guidance rather, right? So Department of Justice, DOJ policy guidance. It's important to recognize that they're giving policy on the use of these cell site simulator technology, or the Stingrays type stuff, right? But policy is not law. And I'll say it again. Policy is not law. So you can come up with all the policy you want, but if it's not law, when it gets in the court, you know what you can't do? You can't suppress the information. You can't say that's against policy. We can't that information to come in. It's not law. If it's against the law, you can suppress the information that they gather. But if it's against policy alone, there's no suppression of that information. That information gets to come in. Right. So understanding that the stuff that they bring in, even if they are able to, in this particular case, if they're using, there's very loose guidance on using stingrays and dirty boxes and the like. There's even a thing here, and this is something that's also important to recognize when you look at it. This is from the FCC, and it deals with the Communication Assistance for Law Enforcement Act. This is CALEA. And there's actually a CALEA standard that they utilize as well. So there's a whole CALEA agency that sets standards for law enforcement for CALEA, and you can become certified. And there's a lot of interesting things here that I want to point out, but that's one of those things that you recognize that you can become certified for CALEA. But what is some basic information about it says industry is generally responsible for setting CALEA standards and solutions. Unless a party files a special petition pursuant to CALEA section 107B, the commission does not get formally involved with the compliance standards development process. Right. So that's what the CALEA organization does. And they're trying to do an end around. That's what this point is here. They want to do an end around. Why am I saying that they want to do an end around? It puts them further and further away. And it means that the person doing it or the company doing it is not a government actor. Why is that significant? Why is it significant that a party is not a government actor? Well, if it's not a government actor, certain things that they do or information they collect, if they do it and it's skirting the bounds of something that might be legal, that information can still come in, right? Because they did it and they're not a government actor. Now, if you're a government actor and the government has significant hand in them going to collect the data on that individual and they violated your Fourth Amendment rights or any of your rights, then that comes into play. But if they're not a government actor and the government is able to pull back a significant amount, then all the information comes into court. Right. This is something that they're able to do at this point because now they're looking at it at ways on how they can distance themselves legally to keep your information coming into court. Right. If that's not enough, and again, we're dealing with the involuntary right now, but if that's not enough on the involuntary, there's another thing that they deal with. And this is one that just has if not more so, this is just as damning at this point. And let me pull this up for you here. This is what I'm dealing with at this point. The FISA, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, or Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, which set up the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court. FISA is a court out there right now. All the judges on the FISA court are appointed by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, right? So you don't get to know anything about FISA. You don't get to know when the government goes in and requests a warrant for information to use stingray devices. Why is that significant? What makes that significant? Well, I had the numbers. Let me see if I can pull these up real fast. I'm probably gonna have to go to Wikipedia real fast here because I had them and I don't know what I did with this Word doc here real fast, but let me see if I can find for us briefly, because when you get in here, it has every year, and I'll corroborate this for you here in a moment. All right, let me share my screen. I want to share this with you. So the FISA court, every year the FISA court gets request. Let me see if I can make this bigger. Okay, so what am I doing? There we go. Struggling with you guys. All right, so since 1979, when the act came about, the FISA court gets requests for for warrants. So request number from in the beginning, 199 requests were submitted. They approved 207. They approved more requests than they got, and they had none that were denied. Then the following year in 1980, they modified one request. And you look at these columns over here, essentially all the requests they're getting all the way up until, what was this, 2000, they modified one in 2000, they modified four in 2001. And what we're really concerned with is requests denied. How many of them does the FISA court actually deny? And up until this point, the answer from 79 all the way up until 2002, the answer was zero, right? The answer was zero. And again, 2004, 2005, none. Then 1, 4, and 1. So they had over 2,000 requests. Look how many requests are coming in. Look how many the court is actually either denying or modifying. They're modifying and denying less than 100. They're getting over 2,000 and they're modifying or denying less than 100. And it wasn't until 2016, 2017, according to this chart, where you can see it starts to get into the triple digits on those numbers. And look at those totals here. So the total number of requests, total number approved, total number modified, and total number denied. And most of these came in the past 3 years of when this report came, right? So for the most part, they're rubber stamping each and every single time they get a request, they're rubber stamping these requests. And these requests are going out and everybody is taking a look at them. And they're doing things for Black Lives Matter and the like, where they look at it and they go, okay, if it's a BLM protest or whatever, they need a warrant in order to run stingrays. They're rubber stamping them. And we can look at here, they give annual reports. Every year, you wonder where that information comes from for the FISA reports. Every year, they give a report. You can look at every report. What's the report that they give to the for FISA? What do those numbers look like, right? And then you'll come in here. You can see where it has because these numbers are public, and they'll sit there. They'll give you a summary finding of FISA disclosed they received 579 applications in 2020. 404 of those were granted. 138 orders were modified. 24 were denied in part. And 13 applicants were denied in full, right? So this was as of 2020 what they had. And then you get down even further and they'll go in here and they start giving you some more totals, right? So orders modified and everything else, but you're able to actually get an account of what those numbers are pursuant to what it is that they're talking about. And then they put those up on a Wikipedia site or whatever, but you're actually able to now to come in here and come take a look at those numbers. And it's interesting that those numbers that they're providing, they're pretty much rubber stamping everything that the government, these agencies are giving them. They're saying, hey, we want to do some surveillance. We need a warrant. And it's significant. We think that these people are talking with someone or working with somebody who is out of the country, or somebody that's a person of interest that they're talking to, and they can get a warrant. They're getting rubber stamped. They're getting pushed through right now. Now in the past, since 2015 is when it comes to light and they're starting to get a little bit more pushback because people know and they know that people are actually monitoring it. But up until that point, there's no real checks and balances, and there probably other agencies that are dealing with it for them at this point as well, to make sure that all of this stuff that Snowden was talking about, all of the secrets, all of the ways on how they're doing it. Yes, they're still doing a lot of those things, but they're also doing it in a way that they're able to keep it legal. They're able to skirt the law, and they use language in such a way as to make it so that all of your information is available to them, right? So going back to the law enforcement standards that they have, you go back to the policies. These are not laws. And I talked about it before when talking about um, police officers and the police departments and the sheriff's departments. There's many times policies that they enact, right? At a organizational level, at a level for the police, at a level for the sheriffs, at a level for the constables, whoever. There's policies, even on three-letter agencies, there's policies they enact. The problem, the issue, when we talked about all these different ways on how they violate us on a regular basis, the issue is that policy is not law. Now they'll enact many different laws in order to curtail you as a citizen, to curtail you as a black person, to curtail you in this country. There is a whole laundry list, a plethora that they utilize in order to limit your freedoms, but they won't make laws in order to limit theirs. And then we talked about it yesterday. We talked about with the Black Panther Party and how they utilize the language of the Declaration of Independence to show the hypocrisy in the system, that the Constitution was initially designed to put a limit or a floor on what the government can do to the people. And that's not the way it's being utilized now, right? It's being utilized now, being used in a way to put a limit on the people and what the people can do. You as a citizen, we need to keep the police powers in effect in order to limit you as a citizen. And that I don't know how else to functionally talk about it in a way that highlights not just the hypocrisy, but the lies that are being told, right? The way that they go in here, they say, hey, this is what we're doing, or this is how they're doing it, and it's still within the bounds of law, right? So let me go in here because there was two things I really wanted to talk about here with the Stingray stuff, because they got Stingray, they have the dirty boxes, they have the Kingfisher devices. Let me see if I can find. I should have tried to PDF this to show what exactly was going on, all right, so I can see exactly where I need to get right back to, or made some note. You know what? We learning together. I know what I'm going to do next time in order to make sure I don't have this same issue. But one of the things that it talks about, that when it started this article up, and let me share my screen here with you. One of the things it talked about, it says, although law enforcement has been using technology since the 1990s, talking about the Stingray, the dirty boxes, the Kingfisher devices, these devices that mimic cell towers. The general public learned about them only in the last decade, and much of their capabilities remain unknown before law enforcement. Now I'm looking now, I think that maybe that might be a little small. Let me see if I can increase the size for you. Is that too big? No, I think that's good. Okay. So it says, although law enforcement has been using technology since the 1990s, the general public learned about them only in the last decade, and much of their capabilities remains unknown because law enforcement agencies and companies that make the devices have gone to great lengths to keep details secret. Stingrays are routinely used to target suspects in drug and other criminal investigations. But activists also believe the devices were used during the protests against the Dakota Access Pipeline and against Black Lives Matter protesters over the last 3 months. The Justice Department requires federal agents to obtain probable cause warrants to use the technology in criminal cases. Again, this is a policy. This is not a law. So they're not required to do it. But there is a carve out for national security, given that President Donald Trump has referred to protesters as terrorists and that paramilitary style officers. Again, the language they use is very important because then it can trigger the ability to do this without a warrant or other things that you might not think about. So terrorists and other paramilitary style officers from the Department of Homeland Security have been deployed to the streets of Portland, Oregon. It's conceivable that surveillance conducted at recent demonstrations has been deemed a national security measure, raising the possibility that the government may have used Stingray technology to collect data on protesters without warrants. And it says it's better to understand the kind of surveillance that may be directed at protesters. Here's a breakdown of what we know and still don't know about Stingrays and why their use is so controversial. So they go through the why it's all called a Stingray, how it works. Again, I encourage you that if you're looking at this, IMSI, IMEI, are the numbers that it's going to be talking about here as well, and what those are. And here it gives some information. It says in 2008, authorities used a stingray and a kingfisher to locate a suspect who was using an air card. So they weren't even using a phone. They had an air card that they were using to connect devices, a hotspot, right? A mobile hotspot is what they had. An internet connectivity device that plugs into a computer and allows the user to get online through a wireless cellular connection, cellular network. The suspect, Daniel Rigmaiden, was an identity thief who was operating from an apartment in San Jose, California. Rigmaiden had used a stolen credit card number and a fake name address to register his internet activity with Verizon. And it's important to note that while we are talking about somebody who did something that was nefarious, that was criminal in what it was that he was doing, it's not the act that I want to focus on. It's what they utilize and the means by which they're able to go about doing it, because they can do it in this case, which is a criminal thing. This is something where we can say, well, hey, it works here. It goes much further. It goes deeper than that, to looking at how it is that they're able to actually interact and do these things to us on things that are not nefarious, to be able to make connections that they shouldn't be able to make otherwise, that are actually a violation of your rights or my rights, right? So it says, with Verizon's help, the FBI was able to identify him. So they found out what his IMSI numbers were, was using the air card so they can position their stingray in the area and move it around until they found the apartment building from which his signal was coming. Then they walked around the apartment complex with a handheld kingfisher or similar device to pinpoint the precise apartment Rigmaiden was using. So the police, the authorities in this case were able to find this device by driving around the area, because they needed to be able to triangulate on which apartment complex it was coming from. And then they use a similar device, a handheld device, to actually walk in there and find the exact apartment where he was located. To the ability to pinpoint your location, right? And when you look, when it goes over how this device works in some of the previous paragraphs, they could use an airplane in order to sit there and pull everybody's information in that area, not just the person that they're looking for, but everybody, all cell phone information in that area, right? And then it talks about what a dirty box is. And here, this talks about some of the other capabilities that these devices have. And one of them that it talks about, in addition to being able to take your communications and everything else, is the ability to block 911 calls from those devices in the area where the stingray is operating. And the fact that it points out that while they believe that it works normally, they've also pointed out there's a lot of times when it doesn't work normally. When you read this paragraph and you get in there, and it references who these Burgess says that he lets you know that there's a lot of times when it does not actually work. And they also can be used to infect your device with malware. So they can put viruses on your phone, viruses on your computer, or if anything that's connected to a device that's connected to a cell tower. They can at that point inject viruses into your device. And they looked at, as for jamming communications domestically, Dakota Access Pipeline protesters at Standing Rock, North Dakota in 2016 described planes and helicopters flying overhead that they believe were using technology to jam mobile phones. Protesters described having problems such as phones crashing, live streams being interrupted, and issues uploading videos and other posts to social media. So we think about these type of things, and we always talk about it in regards to third world countries, right? Other countries out there that use these tactics on their citizens, and we go, oh my goodness, they're against journalism. Oh my goodness, they're against the First Amendment, although that country doesn't have a First Amendment, but they're stepping on free speech in this country, and they should be appalled at themselves, and we point the finger at them. And here it is that here in this country, we have devices that are able to do the exact same thing, right? So we point at everybody else, knowing good and well that we do the exact same thing. We have devices that can do the exact same thing. And we were able to pinpoint it to the IMEI, IMSI number of that device. And again, that's something that's hardwired into the device. You don't get rid of the IMEI, the IMSI number off of the device. It's like the difference between you can try to spoof it. You can try to pretend like it's something else, but that normally doesn't work. It's really easy to be able to pull that information because the device uses that information to connect to the towers, right? And if it doesn't work, then I say there's a huge issue with you connecting to the cell phone towers to make calls and the like. And then it talks about how long they've been using it, aside from what are some of the other problems with it. And there's a lot of issues that it goes into. And it's really interesting when you go into it, but it affects protesters such as Black Lives Matter. So if you're having a protest, if you're Occupy Wall Street, if you're Standing Rock, any of those type of things that you might be doing, even and which are constitutionally protected, free, First Amendment rights, they have the ability to step on it through their government agencies, through these 3-letter organizations. They can step on even locally, because there's a lot of these devices. I'm not going to say even locally. Here, when you look at Kalia, because this is where, again, when we talked about it earlier, they try to put that separation between themselves. That's just general guidance. Unless it comes up under this particular part of Kalia 107 Part B, then it's a government actor. Other than that, it's not a government actor. And those standards, that's not done by us, by the FCC, by the government. They're not government actors this way. They're independent, and it does not fall up under things that is going to be excluded from the record or that you can suppress in court, right? So let me pull this up for you momentarily. Let me get in here one more time. Dealing with Kalia. This is the Kalia report. Now this deals with their financials. You can pull all this stuff up from the Kalia website. Client database. No, I'm job posting. Is it? I want to say it. No, this is getting to accreditation. Client database. There is another one that I actually know it is in the report. I jumped over and I didn't think about it. All right, so here we are. We're in this report that they have for Kalia. Okay, let me make this a little smaller. Let's go back a few pages. All right, so you're wondering who are the agencies that are associated with Kalia. Ironically, these accredited agencies, and it gives them by state. They give you a whole list of these agencies that are accredited through Kalia, law enforcement accreditation for these agencies on how to use, or the standards or policies, again, which are not law, that they use for these devices, such as Stingray devices and the like. So here we have who are some of them in California, right? You can look at who these organizations are in California that are a part of Kalia. These are organizations that 9 times out of 10 definitely have Stingray and black boxes and Kingfisher devices, because they want to make sure they're following a policy dealing with it. Here in my state of Texas, these are some of the agencies: Harris County Sheriff's Department, Houston Independent HISD Police Department, right? These are Rice University Police Department. These are some of the agencies that are utilizing these devices. Texas A&M's Police Department. A lot of these schools are trying to follow the quote unquote standard that has been set aside for them. And so if you're thinking that, hey, they can't suppress any kind of protest that we might have, not only can they suppress it, they more than likely know exactly who you are. Every time you bring your phone to the protest, they know exactly who's there, right? They can tell by your phone that you're there at this protest, that you're participating in this protest, who you are, because your phone is registered to you. Or if it's not registered to you and you're at one of these universities, one of these colleges, and is registered to your parents, they know who your parent is, and they know who's on the parent's plan, and they know all that information just by looking at these Stingray devices, these dirty boxes, these they can pinpoint exactly where you're at in the area. If you're next to somebody who they suspect of terrorism, if they classify it as terrorism, then they no longer need, it can kind of circumvent the need to get a warrant in order to utilize these things. And there are policies in place or standards in place that they don't have outlined here directly, but that you can go into finding out what those standards are and how those standards are implemented by going into their manuals for their standards. And they it's listed, but ironically, let me share this with you as well. I am looking for one thing specifically. There we go. Resources. All these things that are in blue that you're looking at here. Let me make this a little bigger. All these resources in blue: quick guide to accreditation, client database, peer-to-peer recruitment, job postings, manual subscriptions, the form for them to talk to one another, find a regional program manager, are all things that you can access online that are readily available to the public, right? For this gold standard in public safety, this CALIA standards organization, all of these are things that you can access readily. Commission proposal for commitment, standards revision and additions, CALIA bylaws and policy changes are things that are not readily available to the public. You don't get the right to take a look at those things. You don't get the right to see what their policies actually are, what the changes are to the policies. To ask the questions, you must be a member of CALIA in order to do that. And they make sure to hide that information from the public. And that's very important because this is the stuff that you would want to know, right? What are the standards that these organizations are utilizing, right? What are they enforcing on us as a citizenry? We don't get to know that information. That stays in the realm of the individuals dealing with CALIA, or if you're a member of CALIA. So, I say all that just coming back to it, coming full circle at this point. Edward Snowden, he shone a light and he outlined a lot of information that traditionally we might have thought, we knew that it existed, right? We knew traditionally this stuff existed. However, we didn't have proof, right, that these were things that actually existed. And Edward Snowden and WikiLeaks and the like, they went off and they shone a light on it. And in return for them informing the public that their rights were being violated, they've been kicked out of the country or not allowed to come into the country or being prosecuted and hounded for years. However, they come back and they have in front of us at this point a whole list of ways on how they make it legal and how it's legally permissible for them to violate your rights, right? How it has been interpreted, how it has been massaged in such a way that the executive, the legislative, and the judicial branch are working in coordination to make sure that the Fourth Amendment, the provision to make it so that there's a warranted search and seizure gets circumvented and legally done, legally interpreted, that's okay. And that's where I have the issue at, is that we have a set of laws, we have a set of rules, constitutional rules, that we have interpreted away the actual meaning of it by means of the court. We have now made it legal to have unwarranted searches and seizures. They're now the voluntary and the involuntary way of tracking you doesn't really matter because they're going to track you regardless. They can do it regardless. If you have a cell phone, if you have a vehicle that has OnStar or Apple or Google or any third party device or software on it, they can sit there and track that legally. They can track your credit cards. They can track all that information, and they can do it legally. So I'm getting ready to cut out now, and I guess I want your opinions. If you guys have any opinions, by all means, share them with me. I dropped the link earlier, and it's still there in the comments. If anybody has anything that they want to add to the conversation on the lie that continues to go on, because right now what I'm going to go over, I hate leaving without at least offering possible solutions, right? At some point, here are the issues that we have. What are some of the solutions that we can do? Well, obviously, I want to look at it from two different standpoints. There's what you can do individually, and then there's what you can do as a community or as a city or as a municipality or as a state, right? And obviously, that second part is easier said than done, because getting people to come together, to coalesce, to sit down and to come to an agreement on what needs to be done for the community as a whole, for the people as a whole, becomes a lot more difficult. Voting the right people in, voting the right laws in, limiting what government can and cannot do towards the citizenry. All of those are things that can be done at that larger, outside of your individual effort, that you can do. On an individual level, you need to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I'm going to say that again. You need to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. They shroud a lot of the ways on how they take away our liberties by doing it in a way that's comfortable for us. I was always taught growing up, if you ever want to poison a good amount of people, you want to sit there and get in there and make sure that you can kill a lot of people, you want to poison a lot of people, give it to them for free. Free 99. You get it for free 99. And you can poison everybody. What are you giving away? Oh, it's a new drink. New drink. Well, can I try it? Oh yeah, you can try it. Here, we give us free samples to everybody. Free? Oh my goodness, it's free. If it's free, it's for me, right? Everybody runs on out there. It's like, what? Hey, they giving out free drinks back there. Please go get some. Go get some before they run out. Go get some before they sit there and they pack up, before they get out of here. And all the while they sit up there, they're poisoning everybody. And everybody wants a little bit of that freedom or that free stuff. They don't want to ask no questions about what it is they're getting for free. Right? You don't bite. You don't look a gift horse in the mouth, so to speak, right? You don't ask any questions. You just take the poison and you sit down and you go with it. In a very similar manner, they make it convenient for you. The more convenient they make it, the more you'll want to use it. I remember I had many a project, and the more convenient you can make it for the user, the more apt that the user is going to implement the desired process that you want to have implemented. You make it convenient for them. You make it so they get some utility out of it. They're willing to sit there and they will forego their rights and things that they have in order to make sure that they can utilize whatever it is you give them. And we need to be mindful and cognitive of that's what they're doing. And I say that because some of the solutions that you could use are going to put you in that category where it's not going to be comfortable. But not only is it not going to be comfortable, you're going to be viewed in many ways like a criminal, right? A person who wants to drive an older model car or a car that does not have the latest and greatest, not only are they ridiculed because they're not sitting there participating in the consumerism that they should be participating in, but they're looked down on and looked upon like only criminals drive older model cars. Or you get guys they sit there, they have the old caddy in the hood. Oh my goodness, that's what drug dealers drive. That's what these type of people drive. That's what these uneducated black people drive. But that's the solution. That would get you away from this OnStar and all these other things that go on with the electronic devices they put in these vehicles, right? That gives you GPS mapping and gives you the ability to tell how traffic is going, which is it's a very good thing to have. But at the same time, they use that. They Trojan horse it to get in there and make sure that they can also track you, to make sure that they can shut your vehicle down if they want to. Imagine these new Teslas. Whenever they has things that you think about that are commonplace today, that when you buy a vehicle, things that you should have in a vehicle will now come as options on a vehicle, right? You might get it where, the vehicle can go at a certain speed. Well, that's an option that they can put in there. They can now regulate how fast the vehicle can go. They can regulate whether or not you have this certain trim level or let's say you have one of these vehicles, these newer electric vehicles that can change paint color. They can regulate. That's an option. All of these things are now optional and optional devices on the vehicle. Whether the vehicle runs or not could soon be an option, right? They're going to be able to do that as an option, and we're readily jumping into it without looking at and providing regulations on companies to make sure that they're not able to do that. So keeping an older model vehicle, a fossil fuel vehicle, until they are able to make sure, and I'm with everybody on we need to get away from fossil fuels, but at the same time, just pushing getting away from fossil fuels without addressing the issues that are going to go along with that, that's a non-starter for me. We need to address these issues at the same time. They need to be addressed concurrently. As we're going through and we're making that transition, these are issues that need to be addressed concurrently. Another thing that you would be looked at, or that they will look at you crazy for, is using cash. Think about that. You walk into a store, drug dealers do everything in cash. You can't do anything in cash. Think about that. Drug dealers are looked on, or criminals do things with cash, but cash is not tracked easy, right? You go and you spend your money wherever you spend your money at. You buy things wherever you buy. They make it illegal to make certain purchases over a certain dollar amount in cash. Why is that? Because now they can't track it, right? They can't track what you purchased. They can't, we can say it's for tax reasons, but that's also a tracking thing. Every time you swipe your card, we know exactly where you've been. We know when you were there, how long you were there, and we can see that you made this purchase for this amount at this date, at this location with your card, right? Another area for tracking. Using cash could be because it could be something that you can do that can help curtail or kind of make it so it's a little harder to track, right? Give you some of that freedom that we talk about, give you some of that back, right? And the other one is going to be probably by far and away the most difficult. And when I say this, I'm going to have to hit this button real fast because I'm going to say it. And I know there's going to be some blowback on this one. Sometimes, maybe, not always, carrying your cell phone. Many of us are attached at the hip with our phone. We have it. We take it with us everywhere we go. We can't, people have the claw. They have the claw that they walk around with because their hand is attached to that cell phone. That cell phone is with, or now they got it so they have the Apple Watch or the Samsung Watch or whatever that new smart device is, so they can see when their phone rings in their pocket. They can look and see exactly who's calling. They can see the text message they got. They can see the WhatsApp message they got. They can see the Instagram post that was just made. They can reply. They can look at the Facebook. They can see it all because they're addicted. And not only addicted, but they know that you are so into it that you're not going to be able to let it go. And that you're going to voluntarily get into that tracking. And so when looking at it, again, this is another one of those things where you're looking at it and you're seeing things that you can do, right? That would help you to kind of curtail some of the tracking that's done on an individual level, right? Ultimately, what you would like to get to is to be able to start regulating these things, make it so that it is that it is a government actor, and so it does require a warrant in order to get this information, right? That it does comply with the Fourth Amendment, that it does not circumvent your rights up under the Constitution. But until they actually get that done, or until these are some things that you're going to have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? To be able to look at it and be okay with being looked at like a criminal. Even though you're doing nothing criminal, using cash is looked at like a criminal enterprise, right? Only criminals use cash, right? Isn't that government currency? Yeah, it's government currency. Yeah, we should be able to use it. But we're not going to say, but if you do, we're going to look at you like a criminal. And then you start running up against things like civil asset forfeiture. I don't want to get too deep into civil asset forfeiture. Everybody's familiar with criminal asset forfeiture, but civil asset forfeiture is another aspect of the law that needs to go away. This is where it becomes legal for the government to rob you at gunpoint, right? They can pull you over and say that the money that you have is connected, we believe, to a crime. You're carrying in excess of however much money they feel you have thousands. And now it becomes, is it when you do the balance and you look at it, is it worth it to go to court to go get your money back? Because many of the amounts that they forfeit or that they seize from people is $300 or less. Within that $300 range is when the government starts taking your money, and then they make you sue them to get your legally acquired money back. And then sometimes they go, wait. Yeah, we know that we took your money illegally, but is it worth it? How about this? How about we give you some of your money back, and we'll keep a percentage of it so that you don't have to go to court for it. Think about that. They had one recently here. I seen that there was a news article on, and I want to say there was also a YouTuber that also deals with law. He was talking about this and the fact that they can seize because now they started seizing money from armored trucks, where in states where they are legally doing marijuana dispensaries. So the cops are coming up, the sheriffs are coming up, they're pulling over these armored trucks, they're taking the proceeds from the armored trucks. Literally, go look this up. You know what? I'm going to attach some of those. I'm going to attach some of those articles down below in a link. They are legally seizing this money from the armored trucks and making these companies come after them in court to come get their money back. And then they're transferring the money from the state level to the federal level and say, we don't only have the money. So now you have to sue the money as if the money's an individual to get the money back. So they're discouraging you from using cash. Don't use cash, right? Use the methodologies that we want, because then you won't have to worry about getting seized. You won't have to worry about civil asset forfeiture. You won't have to worry about these things. So here's, like I said, so just giving you some options, some things that you might consider that can help you, that can go a little ways towards helping you to remove your footprint, so to speak, so that when they're looking at everybody at this location that's doing this, that, or the other, you might have a few people that might be there with their cell phones to be able to document it without having everybody there to document it the same way or the same time. Does bad because it also allows them to come in there, the police and the authorities come in there and render other abuses because you don't have a device to capture it and to stream it at the same time, right? Think about Philando Castillo during that time frame, if they didn't have the device, the cell phone streaming his murder at that time. Think about what happened with George Floyd, if they didn't have the device streaming at that time to watch his murder live on Facebook and other platforms. So the ultimate answer would be to be able to go in there and, as a community, as a group, as a municipality, as a city, as a state, to change these laws, as a nation, to change these laws, to make sure that they come in and they comport with what the Constitution says that you're supposed to have. But barring that, sometimes we're going to have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, being viewed as being a criminal, even though we're doing nothing criminal or nefarious. And with that, I haven't seen anybody else come up. I haven't seen anybody else jump in. I haven't seen any comments on here at all. And again, to the person that sat there and reached out to me today, thank you. Thank you so much for holding me up. Thank you very much for the support. Thank you very much for letting me know that the information that I'm putting out does have an impact on you, and that I'm not just sitting here talking to the wind. And with that being said, I know I haven't told you before, but I love you, care about you deeply. I hope that your day is going great, and I hope that as it continues on, even into the night, getting ready for the next day, that it continues to be great, it continues to be outstanding, and put you in a position where you're going to do great things tomorrow. And may you always, always, always have peace in your life. And we're out.